Something happened to me last week that's going to be rather difficult for me to talk about, but I'm gonna try my best without getting too choked up. I set out to film a whole wheat brioche bun recipe video, and right at the last minute, after 3 hours of work, I went to upload it and the files were found corrupt and all of it was lost. I felt victimized, felt as if I had been targeted, and I didn't feel like I was in a safe place anymore. But, truth be told, after picking myself up by my bootstraps, I realized that it was a good thing. Upon tasting the bread, it was, of course, delicious. But I was less than satisfied. It was just too dense. And the reason being is, I used whole wheat, which has a higher gluten content, and at the end of the day, brioche is brioche. After revisiting the recipe, I've made some modifications, and I think it's better for it. Without any further ado, let's get baking. One of the main issues I had was its lack of butter. Brioche is a highly enriched dough, and I felt as though it was just lacking. So what we're going to do is heat the stovetop to medium heat, and in a saucepan we are going to add 1/4 cup of whole milk with 1 cup of water. And to that, rather than the 5 tablespoons of butter the original recipe called for, we're gonna add a whole stick. I know, you're excited already. And if that wasn't good enough, we're gonna take 3 tablespoons of honey and add that to the mixture. And once everything's been incorporated, we're gonna kill the heat, transfer it over to a bowl and let it, honey has been, transfer it over to a heat-safe bowl. Once we have the butter and the honey melted, we're gonna kill the heat and transfer this over to the warm temperature, because this is going to act as, once the butter and honey are melted, we're gonna kill the heat, transfer it to a bowl and set it aside and let it come up to a warm temperature. I've done this take like 8 times. I can't seem to get this sentence correctly. All I'm trying to say is, once the butter and the honey are melted, turn off the heat and then just make it not so scorching hot, okay? We're going for that baby bathwater temperature. Seriously, I did that take like 8 times. Like, there wasn't even, I can't even. Now that we have our milk, butter, honey, and water mixture cooling, let's talk about flour. The original recipe I found for this called for 3.5 cups of whole wheat flour. Now that's all fine and dandy, but the issue I have with it is that whole wheat has a higher gluten content. So what this means for our final product is that the bread's gonna be firmer, it's gonna be more dense, it's not gonna be quite as light. That's not necessarily an issue as far as whole wheat goes, but for a brioche, it is. The best part about a brioche to me is how light and airy and buttery it is. And adding 3.5 cups of whole wheat flour is really killing a lot of the things that make brioche brioche. With that said, I don't want to omit the whole wheat completely, because that kills a lot of that nutty, savory, and rustic flavor that I enjoy so much. What we're going to do is substitute 1.5 cups of the whole wheat flour for 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. This is going to lessen that gluten, and it's going to make it a little bit airier. In this bowl, I have 2 cups of whole wheat flour, 1.5 cups of all-purpose. We are going to add 1 teaspoon of salt, and then 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast, or 1 packet from the strip. Please, oh please, whatever you do, make sure that this is just warm when you add it to the yeast and not hot, or it will kill it and your bread will not rise. Once it is just warm, we're going to add it to the yeast, salt, whole wheat, and all-purpose flour. Once it's partially combined and starting to look shaggy, we are going to add 1 beaten egg. Make sure your hands are clean. You weren't raised in a barn. Then begin to mix. It's going to feel very much like a 4th grade science experiment, like you're sticking your hand down in one of those boxes and have to guess what's inside of it at Halloween. But stick with me, it's going to be worth it. I just messed around with that for an hour trying to turn the video the correct way, okay? So just suck it up and get alright with it. I am all for kneading in the bowl when possible and avoiding a mess, but brioche has to be kneaded for 5 to 7 minutes, and I find that this particular dough does so much better if it's been kneaded on the counter. Podcasts, music, meditation, kneading can be a great opportunity for all of them. But truth be told, if you're like me, then you like to think back on all of those people from middle school who were mean to you. Yeah, I like to think about them when I'm kneading. Really just get out the angle. I'm just kidding. I'm totally over that. Once your playlist is over and all your frustrations out, gather up your absolutely beautiful velvety brioche dough. We're gonna put it in a bowl, cover it, and let it sit for about an hour to 2 hours or until it's doubled. Guys, I don't want to alarm you, but I don't think you're ready for this sketty. She doubled. We're gonna punch her down. I know, this has been a pretty aggressive video. Sorry, guys. Then, we are going to take our bench scraper or knife and cut it into 8 pieces. Once we have our 8 pieces, we are going to fold down the pointy end and then bring all the edges in, pinching as we go. Then flip it over and twirl it into a tight little ball. Once you have them all shaped, put them on a parchment-lined baking sheet, cover it, and let them rise for approximately 30 to 40 minutes. 30 minutes later, you are going to grab an egg wash comprised of egg and water, your noodler, and then just take this and dibble it all over the top. What, you've never heard of the phrase dibble? Well, it's not my fault that you're ignorant. Once you have those sufficiently dibbled, I like to top mine with Trader Joe's Everything Bagel, perfect for bagels, buns, and more. Of course, if you're a plebeian who doesn't have access to Trader Joe's, sesame seeds work well, poppy seeds, or just leave them bare. Everybody likes a bare bun after all. Now, let's add these dibbled, sprinkled buns to a 400-degree oven for 12 minutes, rotating halfway through the bake. Now, let's add these dibbled, sprinkled buns to a 400-degree oven for 12 minutes, rotating halfway through the bake. Oh, they're just perfect. Look at them. Just look at them. All their potential. They've met every ounce of it. Here we are at the end of the video, where I sacrificed my fingertips for the sake of production value. I truly can't describe just how these feel. I mean, aside from the radiating heat, they are just incredibly soft, indescribably tender, and unbelievably flavorful. There you have it. These absolutely decadent, delicious brioche buns are perfect for cheeseburgers, shrimp burgers. We could go on and on with different types of burgers. They're just good with everything.